This is Carlos Baleba. This is Baleba again.
It's too strong for him, and Baleba will line one up. Fantastic! What a hit from Carlos Baleba!
And this is the reaction of every Manchester United fan right now. Santos and Tielemans were already superb additions who bring control, creativity and composure in possession. However, even after those deals, there was still one massive gap in United's midfield. The club desperately needed to replace Casemiro, their former anchor, dual winner and physical enforcer, whose influence was instrumental in driving United to a third-place Premier League finish last season. Enter Carlos Baleba, not just another midfield signing, but the ultimate missing piece to United's game plan. But why were United so determined to sign the 22-year-old? And crucially, how exactly does he fit into this new-look midfield? Baleba's rise over the last 3 years has been nothing short of remarkable. In 2022, he left his native Cameroon for the first time to join French side Lille with everything still to learn. But Brighton saw something early. Just a year later, in August 2023, they signed the then 19-year-old in a deal worth up to £27 million, despite him having started just 6 games for Lille up to that point. It was a huge fee for potential alone, and easily one of Brighton's biggest gambles in years, as Baleba was tasked with replacing none other than Moisés Caicedo, following the Ecuadorian's big money move to Chelsea that same summer. Baleba, however, didn't shrink from this massive burden. Instead, he has since established himself as a key performer for Brighton, across 112 appearances, evolving into one of the most exciting midfielders in the Premier League. His debut season was about adaptation. He made 27 league appearances, showed flashes of his power and ball-carrying ability, and gradually adjusted to the pace and physicality of English football. Then in 2024-25, he went from strength to strength, scoring 3 goals in 34 games and becoming a cornerstone in Brighton's midfield. His form was so impressive that United made him their #1 target to bolster Ruben Amorim's midfield options ahead of the 2025-26 season. But after finding out Brighton's reported £100 million asking price, they folded faster than Chelsea, signing a player they didn't actually need. And so Baleba stayed, but his start to the new season proved anything but straightforward. With the transfer noise still hanging over him, he looked short of his usual rhythm, with manager Fabian Hürzeler even subbing him off early 8 times across Brighton's first 16 match days.
And of course, these noises might affect him. Yeah. Unconsciously, there are some moments where you might get affected. Of course, our responsibility is that we give the environment, they can only focus on the performance on the pitch.
For a player who had looked unstoppable months earlier, it was a reminder that his development was still ongoing. But then came the reset. Baleba returned from a strong mid-season AFCON tournament, with Cameroon looking sharper, calmer and reinvigorated. As such, his second half of the season was far more convincing, and by the end of the campaign, he had returned to being a key player for Brighton. So, United have not just signed a talented midfielder, they have signed a Premier League proven one at that, who has already dealt with pressure, adaptation and criticism, and come out stronger each time. But this raises the bigger question: what kind of player is Baleba exactly? By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, we'd be incredibly grateful if you subscribed. Your support helps us grow and continue creating the content you love. Fundamentally, Baleba is a defensive midfielder, but not in the old-school destroyer sense. Instead, his game is built less on reckless disruption and more on snuffing out danger before it develops. He screens intelligently, tracks runners with discipline, and plugs gaps without leaving glaring holes in midfield. Whether he's timing a standing tackle or sliding across to win the ball, Baleba rarely looks desperate. And physically, he's a tank. Standing at 5 feet 10 inches, Baleba isn't especially tall for a defensive midfielder, but he plays with the strength and balance of someone much bigger. Sometimes he'll protect the ball with a well-timed hip check. Other times he'll use his shoulder to nudge opponents off the ball before bursting into space. That strength is not accidental either, as long before he arrived in Europe, he was building his brick shithouse physique back in Cameroon. His father, a former player himself, put him through demanding training programs that involved hours of running and intense weight work. You can see the result now. Baleba covers ground quickly, closes spaces aggressively, and has the engine to influence multiple zones of the pitch. In 2024-25, he was one of only 2 central midfielders in the Premier League to clock a top speed above 34 km/h, while his combined 92 tackles and interceptions ranked joint 6th among central midfielders in the division. But Baleba isn't just a ball winner. Once he has the ball, he can carry it over big distances, squeeze past pressure and turn defensive actions into attacking momentum. That is where he becomes especially dangerous, especially in transition. But for all his power and ball-carrying quality, Baleba's passing can still be inconsistent. He can keep the ball moving cleanly enough and play line-breaking passes, but too often he would misconnect with the ball, overhit a switch, or undercook a simple pass into pressure, all of which would put the rest of his team on the back foot. But check out his recovery speed, geez. He also offers limited goal threat and isn't a particularly effective crosser. But frankly, that isn't why United are signing him. They're signing him because he can give them a rare combination none of their other midfielders can offer in a single package. With Casemiro departing, the obvious solution for United would have been to seek a direct replacement. At his best, Casemiro's game is defined by his front-footed defensive intensity, stepping out to snuff out danger and break up attacks before they gather momentum. Crucially, his defensive steel is matched by a calmness on the ball and an ability to spray passes so perfectly weighted they could find God himself. Baleba largely profiles as a like-for-like replacement for Casemiro, sharing the Brazilian's efficiency, aggression and decisiveness in his defensive actions, albeit without his aerial goal threat. Add in his ability to carry the ball through midfield and a deceptively capable passing range, and United have a player who should immediately improve their protection of central areas, while also helping them progress through the middle. Carrick's arrival has seen United emphasise playing more centrally than under Amorim. His team is operating closer together in the middle of the pitch to combine with speed, and favouring half-space play more often than Amorim, who relied more on his team shifting the ball out to the wing-backs to progress the attack. In this regard, Baleba's left-footed profile could make him an ideal fit alongside Tielemans in the double pivot, while the Belgian's presence should also give him the perfect mentor to further refine his own passing. Not every midfielder can truly balance defensive discipline with attacking thrust, but Tielemans is one of the few who can. He thrives on firing passes through central spaces, and being able to do so with either foot will create a lot more angles to prize open, stubborn defences. Even higher up the pitch, Tielemans remains a central conduit. At Villa, he frequently anticipated Ollie Watkins' runs, clipping perfectly weighted passes into his stride. On that evidence, Šeško will be creaming his pants at the thought of the crosses and through balls about to come his way. That said, for all his strength as an anchor, Tielemans often played alongside a more defensively minded partner at Villa. Baleba, therefore, would offer Tielemans more of the defensive security he previously enjoyed while playing alongside Boubacar Kamara and Amadou Onana. If Carrick decides to pair Baleba with Kobbie Mainoo, Baleba can take on a similar role as a physical enforcer for the academy graduate. That said, Mainoo offers a starkly different profile to Tielemans. His most impactful moments come when he collects the ball deep and drives forward, evading pressure with close control rather than by splitting lines with line-breaking passes. It's a valuable trait and one Michael Carrick will certainly look to spam, but there is no reward without risk because if Mainoo gets dispossessed when carrying the ball into the opposition's half, it would leave United's defence more exposed in transition than a hooker on a busy night. Casemiro's time at United ended on a high, but nostalgia arguably makes that spell look better than it really was. In reality, his biggest impact came through rage-baiting set-piece goals rather than consistent defensive midfield control, forcing Carrick to reshape his entire system around the Brazilian's forward bursts and leaving Mainoo to carry much of the defensive burden for 2 players.
When you look at what Casemiro gives, it's having someone who's a tough tackler. And you really saw the best of Casemiro when the play was in front, when United would go and press. You saw the worst of him at different times when they'd get exposed at different times. They still got the results in transition.
Baleba, by contrast, would both help Mainoo cover more space defensively and protect the backline like a condom. The pairing with Andrey Santos, meanwhile, would present the most tactically intriguing combination. As a defensive midfielder too, Santos screens the backline, drops between his centre-backs, protects the spaces that were vulnerable last season, and breaks up attacks with authority. In doing so, he brings balance back to the midfield and separates himself from his fellow Brazilian in a way that his new teammates will be thankful for. Santos' profile would give Baleba greater freedom to roam in a box-to-box capacity that he himself has said he is fond of. No matter how you slice it, putting Baleba in the starting lineup instantly fixes United's defensive discipline. That is his true value. A player with the athleticism and defensive smarts to become a cornerstone of whatever side Carrick is looking to build.
I want to give everything for my country and for myself. I want to show for the people, I want to be the best midfielder in the world.
If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more content like this. Also, don't forget to hit the notifications bell so you never miss a beat. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.